It's an exciting time for CDKL5 Deficiency Disorder, CDD. Research is currently underway to develop new medicines for CDD, including gene therapies. To test new medicines, clinical outcome measures are needed that can identify whether these medicines have worked. The problem? No CDD-specific outcome measures currently exist. The Food and Drug Administration requires both promising medicines and strong clinical outcome measures for new clinical trials to begin. Treatments, including gene therapy, will not go to clinical trial without strong clinical outcome measures. Is there work being done to develop these measures? Yes. In 2019, the ICCRN made a substantial investment in CDKL5 clinical research and our centers of excellence. Called the International CDKL5 Clinical Research Network, ICCRN, this investment was to support clinical trial readiness, outcome measure development, and biomarker discovery for CDKL5. In 2021, the ICCRN was awarded multi-site validation of biomarkers and core clinical outcome measures for clinical trial readiness in CDKL5 deficiency disorder, an impressive project that is supported by the NIH NINDS. This award was made possible because of the research infrastructure funded by the IFCR, your donation dollars at work. The ICCRN team is following a pipeline of activities in their program of research that will develop and test clinical outcome measures for CDD to prepare for the clinical trials of the future. What does this mean? The ICCRN is getting CDKL5 clinical trial ready, but they cannot do it without us. Listen as our ICCRN principal investigators share more about this critical work, what you can expect, and what they need from the CDKL5 community.
I would say that this type of clinical research that we're doing is how we take our clinical experiences and parent experiences, and we convert them into knowledge. That knowledge then is available to all clinicians, to all families, to be able to improve the quality of care for all patients with CDKL5 deficiency disorder. I also think that specifically what we're trying to achieve with this clinical research is about being prepared for potential future trials where there will be disease-modifying therapies. What do I mean by disease-modifying? I mean not a Band-Aid. I don't mean a drug that just tries to help reduce some seizures, make them a little bit better. I mean something that changes the whole course of the disease, improves development, improves CVI, improves seizures, yes. But the whole package, ideally, is what we're hoping for as we start to move towards drugs like gene therapies or gene modulating types of drugs. In order to be able to be successful in a clinical trial for that type of drug, we have to know what's typical in patients and how do we measure that. And the how do we measure it part seems like it should be pretty simple and straightforward, but it's actually really complicated, particularly in a disease as complicated and with so many different types of challenges as CDKL5 deficiency disorder. So we're looking at development, or what we call validation, which means collection of data and showing that that data sees what we're trying to find and represents patients with CDKL5 appropriately. So we're trying to develop and validate measures that capture as many different facets of CDKL5 deficiency disorder as possible, so that when that drug comes along and is ready to be tested in patients, we're ready to be able to see whether it actually works or not, and how well does it work. Additionally, it's going to give us a better sense of how severe is an individual's symptoms when they start the trial. Is there any chance things aren't going well, that things are getting worse? And I think that's a really critical part as well.
So we need a complete data set on as many people as are able to participate. And what kinds of people do we need to participate? All ages, all genders, all disease severities. Our goal is we want you to be a part of that group of 200. It doesn't matter if you're too old, too impaired, or not impaired at all, or too young. We need you to participate because we want therapies that work for everybody. And only if everybody participates are we going to know that the measures are working so that we can say, yes, this drug works.
What's involved in participating? I'm going to be honest. We're going to ask a little bit of you. We're going to ask you to complete some questionnaires. Those questionnaires are going to take a little bit of time to complete, but it'll get better, I think, as you continue with the study. In the next year, we're trying to get as many patients as possible to complete the surveys and an in-person assessment as possible. That's the ideal for us. And the reason is because we need to get a large number of patients so that we can see, again, how representative is this in capturing all the different types of problems in CDKL5 for as many different types of patients as possible, because no two patients are the same. Every patient's unique. So that's the first part of it. It will take probably about an hour, hour and a half to complete some of those questionnaires. A clinic visit can do some of the physical, in-person physical exam assessment, and that can be combined with a clinic visit. At some sites, we're also doing EEGs, where we're trying to look at novel ways of evaluating the EEG, not using our eyes, but using computers to analyze the EEG to see if that can act as a biomarker for us. Those sites are Boston, Children's Hospital Philadelphia, and here in Colorado. So at those sites, we might ask families to also spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours doing an EEG and collecting that data for also being included in our data set. That can't be combined as part of the clinic visit, but we can coordinate it so that it's on the same day or a day before or after to try to make it convenient for families, particularly if they have to travel from further away. We want to be able to make this kind of a one-stop shop for you as much as possible. The last part of participating is that this isn't just a study being done by US sites and by the Centers of Excellence. This is also a study that we're doing in combination with our colleagues in Australia, Helen Leonard and Jenny Downs. They've been doing research for more than a decade in CDKL5 and are really leaders in the CDKL5 field. They've developed video-based assessments for fine motor and gross motor abilities for CDKL5. And they've actually tried to do something kind of groundbreaking, which is to do those assessments from home. So families are able to video their child doing these assessments and then upload them to their website, where a rater can then evaluate how well an individual is able to do some of those tasks that are requested of them. This is a really important shift in the way that we do outcome measures as a scientific community. Because in the past, we make families, patients come to clinic and do in-person assessments for nearly everything in a clinical trial. We think that as you think about something like a gene therapy, you're going to be looking at clinical trials that could last 2, 3, or even 5 years. And we want to reduce the burden on families as much as possible to be able to have to physically come to a site. And some of those trials may not have a lot of sites. Even in the US, they may only have 2, 3, 4 sites. And so that would be a lot of travel and a lot of burden on families to be able to participate in that. We want to be able to collect good quality data that assesses and keeps some sense of how a family is doing, how a patient is doing from their home at certain intervals throughout a clinical trial, and hopefully reduce the number of times a patient has to actually travel in person. It's a little bit of work to get these videos done. Helen and Jenny will tell you about it. They're trying to go through the process of making it as painless as possible on families, but there's a learning curve to that. And we really appreciate families who are taking the time to also complete those videos because that's part of our whole data set of how we're trying to put all of these assessments together. We're really working in lockstep with Helen and Jenny to be able to complete this study. And we really appreciate the families who are taking the time to do that and providing feedback about how it's going and what are the challenges so that we can improve the way that we administer these videos at home, as well as how we are administering surveys and our in-person assessments. We always welcome feedback about that.
Hi, my name is Gina, and I am the project manager for the International CDKL5 Clinical Research Network, also referred to as the ICCRN. Our network is made up of 8 CDKL5 Centers of Excellence sites, as well as the Telethon Kids Institute in Western Australia. My job as the project manager is to be the central point of contact for families, researchers, clinicians. Really any questions about our network and our research can be sent to me at ICCRN@childrenscolorado.org. IFCR has been incredible at helping us get the word out about our research. So you may have heard about our NIH clinical trials readiness study that we're currently enrolling for. IFCR created this awesome campaign called the 1 in 200 campaign. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. So why 1 of 200? Our network needs to collect 200 complete data sets from 200 unique CDKL5 children and adults over the next year. So we need to reach 200 complete data sets so that our data analysis is powerful enough to tell us whether or not our CDKL5 measures that we're developing are working for our patients. To be counted as 1 of 200, we need families to complete a research visit, and a research visit includes the following. So 1, we need you to be seen in person at one of the 8 CDKL5 Centers of Excellence sites. 2, we need you to complete all 5 questionnaires on the day of or as close to your in-person visit as possible. And then 3, we need you to work with our partners in Australia over the phone to collect the at-home videos as close to your in-person visit as possible. How often do families need to be seen in person for one of those study visits? In the next year, just 1 time. That's all we need. So after that, we'd like to see families at a more regular interval, but for now, we just need to see families 1 time in the next year. So we have a deadline of September 2022, which is coming up fast. If you can be seen before then, that would be so awesome. Otherwise, just focus on being seen 1 time between now and February 1st, 2023 to be counted as 1 of 200. Our research coordinators are really awesome at doing their very best to coordinate a research visit with any clinical visits that may already bring you to one of our COEs. And so if your family can't make it to a COE, please still participate in the remote data collection. But in order to be counted as 1 of 200, we do need you to complete the in-person visit as well as the questionnaires and remote video collection.
We at Telethon Kids Institute in Australia are responsible for the video component of the clinical trial readiness study. We very much welcome and have already received notifications from families outside the US who would like to participate in the video component of this study. When we receive such a notification, I usually call the family and explain to them the next steps, which will involve further email and often telephone communication to explain about the videos that we would like them to make of their children. Just over 1/3 of the completed video sets we have already received have come from families outside of the US who have been invited to participate because they were already registered with the International CDKL5 database. Results from these video data and other questionnaire data are already being analyzed and being used for this research study. Therefore, families living outside of the US are already making a very important contribution and will continue to do so to this study.
To start, we are developing 2 video measures: the CDKL5 hand function measure, or CDD hand, and the CDKL5 Gross Motor Function Measure, or CDD Motor. We are inviting families with a child who is 12 months or older to do these measures at all levels of abilities and skills and wherever you live in the world. If you are interested, then we telephone you to tell you about the study and to answer any questions you may have. We will then send you the instructions. This includes a list of the tasks to do with your child, and we will send an online link for you to upload your video clips directly from your phone, wherever you are, to our computer at Telethon Kids.
You know, having the opportunity to collect this data set that's going to allow us to provide meaningful therapies for our patients with CDKL5 disorder this is what excites me about this whole project. It's an incredible opportunity that we've been provided through the very generous funding from the NIH, also generous funding from ICCRN that got this thing off the ground.
This is a really groundbreaking study. It's exciting to us as the investigators in this study, but it should actually be exciting not just for CDKL5, but for the whole epilepsy and neurogenetic community. The NIH hasn't supported a study like this for one of these types of conditions previously. This is the first time that they have supported a developmental and epileptic encephalopathy study, a neurogenetic study like this that wasn't for neuromuscular. There's totally different challenges for a developmental disorder or an epilepsy disorder compared to other types of disorders like neuromuscular disorders. So this is an opportunity for us to really drive the field forward in our understanding of how to measure the symptoms that you guys are seeing in your children every day, so that we can actually move the ball, so we can actually improve quality of care. We can use it to assess, is this the right seizure med? Is this not the right seizure med? As well as future clinical trials. We see this being integrated into clinical care to help create guidelines for what's the best treatment, how do we deal with certain issues better than we currently do, and really build data to help us make those decisions, rather than just kind of making our best educated guess or working from our personal experience, but not combined experience of all the physicians who are treating patients with CDKL5 deficiency disorder. I think this study is really a game changer, and we're really excited and honored to be part of it. And we can't do it without you, the families that are living with this disorder and their children every day, and gaining knowledge from your experience working with these kids.
To recap, to be one of 200, you will need to make an in-person site visit to one of the 8 CDKL5 Centers of Excellence. But no matter where you are in the world, you can participate from home by completing the study surveys and recording the fine and gross motor videos. The success of this important work depends on the participation of our CDKL5 community. We know that traveling to a site can be challenging for a variety of reasons, but if you can make it, please know that you are doing a tremendous service for CDKL5 deficiency disorder, and that your efforts are valuable, important, and appreciated. Learn more about what's possible for you to participate in and direct questions to the ICCRN team by visiting their website.